This is the talk show that takes a no-holds-barred approach to politics, where truth and integrity are the standard and the Constitution honored. From Renaissance Studios, this is Champion News Talk Radio.
Good morning and welcome to a very special Father's Day edition of Champion News Talk Radio. We are brought to you by championnews.net, and we're your choice for the conservative voice. We'd like to wish all of our fathers a very happy Father's Day. And today's show is very special. We have Father Jack Roeser with his son Tom Roeser, and we're going to talk a little bit today
now,
about
there's a little correction there. Because I was his father for about 50 years, and then this guy came along and really improved things so much that we've switched now. He's the father now.
Well, I was irresponsible for the first 50 years, and now he's being irresponsible for the second 50 years.
Hey, listen,
so I have to be the dad now.
I think it's supposed to work that way, though.
Go to your room.
Yes, sir.
No, this is quite...
To make it a little more straight, I was tough on this guy. In a way, he's a boy named Sue.
Here comes the Sue, yeah.
I kept a wooden spoon next to my plate at dinner table. And he sat on my left, and if he got out of order, which sometimes happened, it was a tap on the head with this wooden spoon.
And the bad thing was I had to set the table. So I had to put the spoon there.
You had to put the spoon down there. You couldn't conveniently lose it or anything, Tom?
What?
Well, if you did, that would be rapping on the head for losing the spoon, and then sit down, and now rapping on the head for sitting in the wrong spot.
Actually, Tom was a very likable baby and young man. He's the sweetest kid you could want to see. And but along about fourth grade, I started paying him for better grades. And he was in Mary Cedar Wisdom School, where the classes were 55 kids, 1,000 kids in the school, 55 kids in a room. Mrs. Clary was his teacher in fourth grade. And she took, 6 kids, you among them?
A bunch of them. And
taught them fifth grade and skipped them into sixth grade. So the call came from Sister Superior that I should go over and decide whether I wanted him skipped or not. So I go over, and the lights are not on in the hall. The lights are not on in the office.
But the lights were on in Sister Maris.
Well, a bell rang, and as I'm standing in the hall wondering what to do, a bell rang, and so all the classes are changing, and here comes General MacArthur, this really tough nun, and she says, "You're Mr. Roeser, read that book. There's a marked chapter. It'll tell you the pros and cons of skipping him. We will do what you say. Read the chapter." Well, I went to a Catholic school for 3 years myself, and I knew you don't disagree with a nun. Mm-hmm. So I read the chapter, and I said, yeah, let's skip him. And she says, that's fine, goodbye. But that's how it went. And Tom was a little bit big for his age, and is a very good student. And he took off scholastically from about that time. And Tom went to Purdue.
It was the 25-cent incentive for an A.
Well, I was going to send him to Illinois. I went to the University of Illinois in mechanical engineering, and that accounts for the funny whirring sounds I make. But he was going to go to Illinois because the tuition was low. But there was a lot of political stuff going on down there and protests. And he said, "Dad, I don't want to do that. I want to go to school and learn something." And he says, "I don't want to get mixed up in politics."
It was the wrong kind, not in politics. I didn't want to get mixed up in the kids at that time were occupying administrative offices around the country. Dow Chemical comes to look to hire kids, and then the kids go and riot because of the Vietnam War and that kind of stuff. It was a time that many college campuses were unstable.
Tumultuous.
Yeah, and so not to be involved in politics, they're very different, but not to get swept up into the
culture.
Yeah, the riots.
The
and
rioting
culture.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was big then.
It was a very tumultuous time, the
People
late
forget
60s.
that we went through the communist conspiracy way back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. We've been through all of this crap about socialism, and riots in the streets, and people forget because Reagan put it all straight. But that's how that stuff went, and this irresponsibility happened during that time. But,
well, there's something called the American dream, and I think you started this, and you're...
Let me complete the story with.
Okay.
So he said he wanted to go to Purdue.
Okay.
And I said, well, that's going to cost you $1,200 a year more. I said, I'd asked him to make a budget for paying the thing, and I says, redo your budget and see if you can earn enough money to do that.
I was in the process of buying a new car. And he says, you're going to buy a new car? And what about college? And so I had to put together a budget and show how I could afford college.
So you paid for your own college?
I paid for half of my college.
So...
My dad did that to me. I had to pay half of my first bicycle and so on, and that's the way it went. My first car was $50.
I like working. I had jobs at night when I was in college. I had jobs in the summer. Worked at Otto for a period when I was a summer kid. I like to work.
As a boy, he assembled, he was young when I started my company. It was an American dream. I'd started 2 companies before, and I had 38 years old, and I didn't like the politics, the business politics.
The corporate politics.
And big corporations. And so at 38 years old, with just $5,000, I started a business to make high-quality aircraft controls and switches. And so I designed a push-button sealed switch that the military used a lot of. And we made them by the thousands in here. And due to this day, we make same switch 50 years later, and many other things as well. But as a boy, he assembled buttons and boots and a washer for a penny apiece. He did them by the multiple thousands. Also, Christmas time came around one year, and my brother was in the candy packing business, and he got me a big box of wrapped hard candies and a brass ring and a little plastic pair of scissors. And the idea was you could tie them all together and make a Christmas wreath, put it on the door, and a guest could come and clip off some candy. It was a gimmick. So how old were you then, about 10?
No, I would say I was 10, and of course I wanted to get some money for Christmas presents to give gifts, and I had to earn the dough, and so I was offered this opportunity. I can't go door to door to sell. I can make these, but how would I sell them?
He didn't want to do this. He was the nicest kid, really was, and not all that adventurous. And I says, go and make these wreaths now. You made one, it looks fine. Now make more, and you're going to go and sell them door to door. No, Daddy.
The making is easy. I'm a manufacturing mecca, but I'm not a sales guy. So
he went out the door, and he had half of those wreaths with him.
I had a script. Go out the door, sell these, you will like it, and say this.
You created a script for him.
He went out, and he sold the 6 things, and he came back through that door sprinting, heading for the candy to make some more.
Success feeds the appetite of aggression.
That's good.
But isn't that interesting? You didn't want to do it, but you prodded him to do it. You showed him, because you know what? There's nothing like being able to sell. That is a hard thing to do, and at a young age to reach out to people, especially when you're 10 years old, you're shy.
You know, selling, there's nothing better than to believe in yourself. That's it. And how do you learn to believe in yourself? You can be some cocky person, or you can work in society or your family where they say, if you work hard, you can surprise yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's the big thing. Surprise yourself.
Well, and you know what? I think you believed in what you were giving value to these folks, this great, cool idea of a wreath. But it's hard. A lot of folks cannot talk to other people, and they don't have that intrinsic value.
Well, then they don't have to. I was able to. But I think the theme is not that I could sell. The theme is that my father learned or taught me that a work ethic is an important thing that you will enjoy. And I did. And the rest is history.
He had earned this money, and in those days before he went to college, it was very hard for high school kids to get a job. There were no jobs. So times were tough. And but he got a job. In one case, what he did is he organized a crew of guys to clean a Ford agency at night. And that's what they did. But he always worked, and he got the money, and he kept to the schedule on the envelope of how he was going to make the money to go to pay half of
I
college.
still have that sheet of paper with that budget on it.
I wish
that you flipped over. He said, "How are you going to pay for college if you're going to buy this car?" So I made this little budget, and then he flipped it over and he said, and he wrote 50-50 college.
We are going to be back. Stay with us. This is a very special Father's Day show. We're going to be back with Mr. Tom Roeser and Mr. Jack Roeser right after the break. Don't go away.